Hello, friends. African protagonist here with another episode today. And as you see from the caption, today we will be talking about the war in Sudan, or more specifically, the genocide and ethnic cleansing that is going on in Sudan. For those of you who may not know, the name Sudan since ancient times is an Arabic name that means the land of black people. Sudan is the congregation of where some of the most ancient human tribes, African tribes, came from. Even ancient Egypt, before the modern day borders were drawn by the colonizers, it was one seamless kingdom going all the way through along the Nile. And since ancient times, the Nile, as suggested, was the land of the Nilotes. The name Nilotes come from the name Nile. Now, why is Sudan an issue? Why should Sudan be an issue of interest to Africans? Because what is happening right now in Sudan is not so much of a war, but really it is an ethnic cleansing. Uh, since Sudan got its independence from the British and thereafter the British handed it over to the Egyptians, which Egypt will talk about it in another video, but the Egyptians, which is an Arab country, they were given control over Sudan, and Sudan thereafter got independence from them, and since then they haven't had peace. The master plan of what is happening in Sudan right now is the slow but sure Arabification of the nation. Uh, if we go back to the Darfur war that happened between 2003 to 2005, Omar al-Bashir, who was the dictator then, created a militia group from the Bedouin Arab tribes called the Janjaweed. The Janjaweed was primarily tasked with one obligation only, and that was to exterminate and remove the ethnic black Nilotic people from Sudan, who then went on to flee into Chad and subsequently even created their own nation that we now call South Sudan. The whole point of South Sudan breaking away from Sudan was because of the ethnic cleansing and the discrimination that was happening from the Arab government, the Arab majority government. And yet this country, since ancient times, has always been a black nation. Now, what is happening today, even with the war that is going on right now, the Janjaweed then went on to rebrand themselves and called themselves the RSF, which in quotes is a rebel group, but in reality is an ethnic militia of, uh, of ethnic Arabs, whose task is primarily to exterminate and remove black people from their ancestral land. Now, we have seen a case that has been brought forth by South Africa in recent times against the state of Israel uh, for the war that is happening in Gaza. Now, I have no problem with defending the people of Gaza, but as they say in English, charity begins at home. What is the point for us as Africans going out there defending foreign nations, defending foreigners, while we at home here in Africa have our own problems? Why would we ignore the conflict in Sudan, the ethnic cleansing that is happening in Sudan? As we speak, hundreds of thousands of ethnic black people in Sudan have been displaced in the recent fighting and have fled to Chad. Others have fled south to South Sudan, and we don't know whether they'll ever get the chance to go back home. It's permanent displacement of black people in Sudan, and it is a slow but sure process of turning the country into an Arab nation. Now, what can we do about this as Africans? The first thing we can do is to pray for Sudan, of course, pray for peace in that nation, for peace to prevail. But at the back of our minds, we also need to understand the context of the conflict that has been going on. Sudan has had 3 civil wars since independence. But even before independence, there wasn't really peace. These are people who have been fighting for centuries. And if you go back to the root cause of all the fighting and why people are fighting in Sudan, it is all for ethnic reasons. As I've stated earlier, the reason South Sudan broke away and created and got independence from Sudan is because the Arabs had an intention of completely overrunning the country and turning it into an Arab nation. And their plan was to go all the way south and stop at the northern border of Uganda. And we don't know if they would have been satisfied with stopping at the northern border of Uganda, if this goes unchecked, the Arabs will wipe out the blacks in Sudan, and we do not know what kind of future the people there will have, because so far they have already been displaced, and they have fled south. So this is something that Africans need to be following keenly. South Africa, in as much as they want to stand in unity with the people of Gaza, charity begins at home. If there's any case that needs to be taken to the ICC, or any action that needs to be taken by the African Union, Sudan is a case that demands immediate and urgent action, because if nothing is done, soon we will be remembering Sudan. And as I said, the name Sudan itself means the land of black people. And how can it be the land of black people, and yet Arabs are expelling all the blacks there? So it is something that Africans need to take to be keen about. This is something that we need to all be concerned about, because if they can do it to Sudan, we are not sure whether they'll be satisfied. And there is even recent evidence to suggest that the RSF is being armed and funded by foreign actors, namely the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, which are in recent years have started showing that they have imperialist intentions. Unfortunately for Arabs in the Arab world, they were given oil, they were given all the riches, but they were not given arable land. So the whole strategy, the master plan of taking Sudan, which is unfortunately part of the Arab League. Sudan is a land of black people, but it's part of the Arab League by affiliation of Islam. And Sudan is actually considered to be the most fertile country in the Arab League. So Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and other powerful Arab nations that do not have arable land in their country have been acquiring and purchasing, even before this war that broke out recently, they have been purchasing land in Sudan along the banks of the Nile. Very fertile land where they have been doing large-scale agriculture and exporting food back to their nations in Saudi Arabia and the UAE, and even to some extent Qatar and Bahrain. So weapons that have been found with the RSF there have been reports of financing and even arming by Saudi Arabia and the UAE, and they have been instigating and stoking the flames, supporting their Arab brothers in Sudan to continue this genocide and to continue this ethnic cleansing against black people in Sudan. So if there are foreign actors that are from even a different continent that are financing and propping up the extermination of blacks in Africa, I think this is something that all Africans need to be concerned about. We need to get rid of this attitude whereby in every individual African country, people believe that the problems of their neighbors are not their problems. So we need to stand together, we need to pray for Sudan, and we need to continue watching this space, and I will continue updating you on the developments that are going on there. Thank you.